So that's the tone of this semi-acoustic guitar, an Ibanez, without any electricity being involved. So what I want to talk about is tone. I mean, so many guitarists are really obsessed with getting a good tone, and they will buy pedals, change amplifiers, do all sorts of things to try and get the tone they want. Of course, not everybody's idea of perfect tone is the same thing. The tone of, say, Eric Clapton playing his high kind of wailing solos is entirely different than, say, the tone of James Hetfield playing in Metallica. A lot of it's down to taste, but there is something fundamental about a guitar which will give you the best tone that that guitar can have, and that is to remove the issues which prevent the guitar having the best tone that it can have. It's hard to talk about this in just descriptive words, but here's a little story. I had been playing guitar for probably 20-25 years, just as an amateur, and I managed to get hold of a Gibson Marauder, a slightly obscure Gibson, and when it arrived I was really excited, and I sat down to play it, and it just sounded dead. It wasn't what I expected at all. It was a big disappointment, and I had no idea in those days why. So I just kind of thought, oh, I'll have to live with this. Maybe I'll sell it on, maybe I'll get used to this sound, maybe it needs new pickups. I just didn't know. I didn't have the knowledge then to know that there were issues, mechanical issues with that Gibson Marauder, which was robbing it of its natural tone. So it wasn't as loud as it should be, it wasn't as clear and clean, and there was something about the sustain was being hampered, so the notes when plucked didn't last as long as they should have. And this must be the case for lots of people who are either learning to play the guitar or are guitarists but don't have any mechanical knowledge about the instrument really. And that there are things some of which cost nothing at all to fix, which could be robbing your guitar of its tone. So that's what it actually will be a short series of videos because there's too much to cover in one video. That's what this is going to be about. And when I sat down to write down how many things could be a problem with achieving optimal guitar tone, it's about 25 or 30 separate ones. So it's well worth putting this information across, because most people will know some of them but not all of them. So here's my Stratocaster on the bench, and I'm just going to use this as an example so I can point to the parts of the guitar I'm talking about. And as I say, we'll start with mechanical issues which might be robbing your tone of its depth and quality. The most important things, I think, are the pickups. There are 3 pickups on this Stratocaster, single coil pickups, and after that mechanical issues at the bridge. This is the bridge, the point where the strings are held at this end, and the nut, which is a point where the strings are held at the other end, and that defines the length of each string, the distance between the nut and the bridge. That has to be exactly right for the string to remain in tune as you fret it all the way down. Okay, in terms of mechanical issues robbing your tone of what it could be, let's start with the bridge. Loose components in the bridge will interfere with the transmission of the string's vibrational energy. The vibration of the string is what the pickups on an electric guitar interact with, and that vibration is altered by the 2 points at which each string is held. So if there's energy robbing issues at either end of that, then that will prevent the oscillation of the string which the pickup is interacting with from being quite what it should be. This is hard to describe in words. So yeah, loose components at the bridge, bad material at the bridge that is not ideal for transmission of energy into the body of the guitar. And at the other end, probably even more importantly in terms of materials, if the nut is the wrong material, if it's plastic, particularly if it's plastic a bit on the soft side, that will rob a lot of energy from the string vibrations. This one has a bone nut because I've made a bone nut for it. Bone seems to be absolutely ideal. It's hard wearing, it's harder and more sound transmitting than is white plastic, but it's different than a metal like brass in terms of the sound that it imparts to the plucked string. So yeah, for an electric guitar like this, almost all guitars actually, acoustics as well, a bone nut is, I think, probably the best. And you can buy bone nuts and you can buy bone blanks to make exactly the shape and size and string spacing of nut that you want. Okay. There can be issues with the nut as well as the material. Each string should sit in a slot of precisely the right width and shape to suit each string. So bass strings should have a wider slot in the nut, and the slots should be round bottomed so that the string doesn't bind into a V-shaped notch. They should be only deep enough that the string sits in the slot and doesn't disappear into the slot, so there should be some of the string protruding above each slot. And it shouldn't be too big, too sloppy, because then the string will move inside the nut slot. And the other big issue is that these slots that I'm talking about, these grooves, must be filed so that it's the leading edge of each slot that the string lies on, so that you get a precise point that the string takes off from the nut, not the whole length of the slot. So in other words, they need to be filed slightly downwards in this, I'll exaggerate, in this direction. And here is a nut file. This is 0.046, 46 thou inches, that is. And these are available from Luthier Supplies. And I have about 8 of those to give me a choice of widths, and the shape of the cutting edge is the right shape for a string. So who am I and how do I know all this stuff? I'm an amateur guitarist, self-taught, and had a career as a scientist as well. I'm someone who only in the last, say, 4 or 5 years has learned a lot about the mechanics of guitars, and that's been largely from the internet, from YouTube. some people in particular that I'd gone to YouTube just to find out about some particular issue and then really enjoyed what I saw. So for instance, Dave's World of Fun Stuff is very funny and extremely informative. And there are a few others, Jerry Rosa of Rosa String Works and others, who talk about guitars, and you actually watch them fixing guitars with issues, repairs and so on. So putting into practice some of these things which I've learnt off these YouTube guitar gurus has left me knowing lots of things about how to optimize guitar performance. I'm a YouTuber who generally posts my own music, also some of my own poetry, so this is a bit of a departure. I have done some guitar tuition, very basic guitar tuition videos as well, but this is a departure, as I say, and I hope at least some people find it useful. Before starting this, I sat down and wrote down all the kinds of issues that might be robbing tone from a guitar, and they came down to: number one, mechanical issues, things like body to neck joint not tight enough, loose frets, loose tuner components, all sorts of things really. The frets not crowned and levelled to the right radius compared to the actual wooden fretboard radius. Lots of examples of mechanical. Magnetic issues concerning the pickups, which are basically electrical magnetic devices, and they interact with the strings magnetically, which are metal, of course. So if the pickups are too close to the strings, the magnetic pull on the strings dampens the sustain. Look, I don't want to. I'm just giving examples here. Electrical issues, of course. I mean, basically, faulty or inadequate, too cheap pickups, the wrong kind of pickups for the sound you want, that kind of thing, as well as components of the rest of the circuit having faults or being the wrong spec. Then there are amplifier issues, which you may be blaming the guitar for. And finally, expectation, psychological issues. What actually do you want your tone to be? And are you expecting too much of a cheap guitar and amp, for instance? So yeah, there are these 5 categories, and I'm going to go through several examples of each, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching.